What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me. Let's talk about the crime in Chicago. You know things are really bad when MSNBC devotes an entire segment to it.
In Chicago over the weekend, at least 54 people were shot. This is just over Labor Day weekend, 7 killed. Several of the incidents were mass shootings with multiple victims at a single scene. In one instance, a teenage girl was hit with a stray bullet. The violence comes as President Trump threatens to send federal agents and National Guard troops to Chicago to quell the crime there, despite objections from the city's mayor, Brandon Johnson, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Hold on. He says Trump threatens to send in the National Guard? It's not a threat. It's an offer. And Chicago should take it because crime is out of control. In fact, since you aired this little segment, 2 additional people died. So it's not 7 people dead, it's 9. And it's no longer 54 people shot, it is 61. 61 people shot one weekend. Do you know how bad this is? Let's compare it to New York City, which is also overrun by crime because it's run by Democrats. Do you know how many people were shot in New York City? Same weekend, 5. 61 people in Chicago, 5 in New York City. Chicago has a population that is 1/3 the size of New York City, yet it had 12 times as many shootings.
We've been reading about this for years now, every weekend, and maybe crime has gone down. But, we had the mayor of Chicago on last week saying, oh, we don't need any more police officers. Police officers aren't the answer. No police officers. I think he said no 5 times. You look what's happening this weekend. You look so,
I have that. Watch how difficult it is for Brandon Johnson to admit that having an additional 5,000 cops on the streets would make Chicago safer. Count how many times he refuses to answer.
Would you also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that. You've talked about the other things you want, and I said those are good and important programs, but I'm asking also, would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but I know it's not policing alone. You've told me everything else you want. I'm curious, and this does come down to an ideological difference between people. Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying that
that's not the question I asked. My question is, and I just need a yes or a no, do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no, and then this will be the last time I ask. If you get all of those other social programs that 800 million that New York City does, Los Angeles, other people do with great success, would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer.
I counted 5 times. The left refuses to acknowledge that putting more cops on the street would make the street safer. They just won't do it because police always have to be the enemy. Instead, he says the solution to violent crime is more affordable housing. There are crimes committed by homeless people, but they're not committing those crimes and attacking people because they're homeless. They're attacking people because they're mentally deranged. If there is a schizophrenic hearing voices telling him to push you in front of an oncoming train, those voices aren't going away simply because he has a place to sleep. Homelessness has nothing to do with the violent crime in Chicago. And I could prove it to you, Brandon. Of the 61 gang members who shot people this weekend, how many of them were homeless? Zero. None. You don't want to solve the crime issue. Liberals never fix what's right in front of them. Instead, they deflect and stall and say, we want to get to the root causes, just like the border. When you sent the idiot down to figure out the root causes of why our southern border was being flooded with illegals. You want to know what the root cause was? Their countries suck and ours is great. There we go. I just solved it for you. I just saved you the trip. It's common sense. And it's common sense here too. When you take violent criminals off the street, those streets become safer. But don't tell that to Brandon, because he thinks locking up violent criminals is racist. You hear that? Driving violence down by locking up criminals is racist because most of those criminals happen to be black. Let's talk about the victims. What race are they?
So from 2014 to last year, 10 years, there have been more than 7,000 human beings murdered in the city of Chicago.
That is correct.
And Pritzker will tell it's going down. It doesn't help the people in the cemetery, and it isn't going down significantly based on the Labor Day weekend stats that were horrific.
58.
So Pritzker doesn't want to solve the problem. It's too messy because the murders are taking place in the black neighborhoods. 80% of the 7,000 fatalities are African American.
7,000 people killed in Chicago in the last 10 years. Do you know that is more than the number of Americans that were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan combined? It's true. Here are the figures. 4,432 military members were killed in Iraq and 2,354 were killed in Afghanistan. That's a total of 6,786 people. And this spans 13 years, from October of 01 until December of 14. Think about that. 214 more people died on the streets of Chicago in 10 years than died in Iraq and Afghanistan in a period of 13 years. Chicago has become so much more dangerous than Iraq that they now have a new nickname for it. They no longer refer to it as Chicago, they refer to it as Chirac. And remember, 80% of those 7,000 victims over the last 10 years were black. And that percentage is increasing. When you look back over the last 5 years, it's even higher.
So in the last 5 years in Chicago, nearly 4,000 human beings have been murdered. 84% of them black.
84% of the victims are black. Yet Brandon claims arresting the animals responsible for this is racist because we have an incarceration problem of too many black men. Even though they killed other black people, arresting them is racist. So what do, Brandon? Let them kill each other in the name of fairness? Brandon claims we are addicted to incarceration. We have too many people in jail. We have too many inmates. Do you know what we have too many of, Brandon? We have too many victims. Criminals are not caught right after they commit their first crime. Some go years evading police. And when they're finally captured and put away, how many people have they victimized? Remember this the next time liberals say that we have too many people in jail. We don't have too many inmates. We have too many victims. Now let's go back to Morning Joe and listen to his advice for Governor Pritzker.
I actually think that J.B. Pritzker should do something radical. I think he should pick up the phone, call the president, and say, you know and I know you don't have the constitutional authority to deploy the National Guard here and to police my too. You can do that in D.C., you can't do that in Chicago. But let's partner up. These are the most dangerous parts of my state. we would love to figure out how to have a partnership that's constitutional, that respects the sort of balance of federalism between the federal government and the state government. And let's work together to save lives. Because right now, just hey, nothing to see here moving along. No problem here. Hey, Donald Trump, we don't need you. And, the mayor talking about we're going to protect people's dignity in our city. Well, protect their lives. That's protecting their dignity. It would be radical for us to figure out a way to actually do what I've been saying from the very beginning on Washington, and that is seeing politicians creating partnerships that protect their people.
They will never create a partnership to protect their people because they despise Trump. They would rather let their residents die than be seen working with him. This is true for one reason. If they let Trump send in the National Guard and he cleans up Chicago and brings crime down, it will prove one of two things. A, they were incompetent and Trump had to come in and do it for them. Or B, they could have done it all along, but they just didn't want to. So the last thing they want is for Trump to bring in the National Guard and be successful because they know it would work. It worked in D.C. Do you have any idea how successful that was? Here's some stats for you.
Trump deployed the National Guard in D.C., another chaotic mess. On August 11th, here's what happened. So far, about 1,500 arrests, okay? 156 illegal guns seized. Year-to-date comparisons since the National Guard went in, 40% drop in violent crime. 40%. 82% drop in carjackings. 11% drop in property crime. Even the progressive mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, says, hey, this has worked. The Washingtonians are more protected and feel safer. And it's the truth.
I'm going to play a clip of Bowser's press conference, but the figures Bill gave you only went to August 31st. The latest figures are even better. Here's Pam Bondi.
There have been over 1,900 arrests since we've started taking D.C. back and making it safe, working hand in hand with Metro PD. The FBI has, my office has, to keep and make D.C. and America safe. And over 198 guns have been taken off the street. Just last night, 10 more guns and 73 arrests were made in D.C.
More than 1,900 arrests in 3 weeks. 1,900 criminals are removed from the street, and the liberals are screaming. Doesn't this prove that they want crime? Does this not prove that the Democrat Party is the party of criminals? Anyway, here's Bowser.
The difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. And we greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city.
You got to give her credit, right? She knew that her base would be pissed for thanking Trump, but she did it anyway. But why are the liberals fighting this with everything they have? Why are they so against this? They want more carjackings? They want more homicides? 198 guns removed from the street in 3 weeks. That's not a good thing? Of course it is. But the liberals cannot acknowledge this because they would have to admit that flooding the zone worked, and they would eventually be using police to do it in Chicago. And of course, when you use police to lock up criminals, that's racist. So Brandon is doing everything he can to prevent Trump from bringing in the National Guard. He's not only refusing to form a partnership with him, but he's actually issued an executive order to prevent anyone in Chicago from cooperating. Here it is, Executive Order number 6, where Brandon claims deploying the National Guard escalates violence rather than securing the peace. You see that? Fighting crime escalates violence. And when Brandon wasn't writing executive orders to stop Trump, he was asking the residents of Chicago to rise up, not against violence, but to rise up and fight against the stopping of violence. And he's very passionate about it.
No federal troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago. Are you prepared to defend this land that was built by slaves, a land that was built by indigenous people, a land that is built by workers? Are you prepared to defend this land? The people united will always prevail. I need you all to stand firm, to stand strong. If this president decides to continue to break this Constitution, no troops in Chicago. No troops in Chicago. No troops in Chicago.
That's a man who is absolutely terrified of solving the crime issue. And the idiot liberals in the audience are cheering. Yeah, don't bring in the National Guard. We want more homicides. Liberalism is a mental disorder, and their response has always been the same. Blame racism and remind everyone that we're on stolen land. And blame guns. Don't forget to blame guns. Here's another stupid thing he said.
We will never be able to end gun violence in Chicago as long as the president continues to allow tens of thousands of guns to be trafficked into our state and our city. The vast majority of guns do not come from Chicago. They are not made in Cook County. They are not bought in the state of Illinois. These guns come from red states. They are coming from Indiana. They are coming from Mississippi. They are coming from Louisiana. And that is the harsh reality, whether Republicans like it or not. Chicago will continue to have a violence problem as long as red states continue to have a gun problem.
So now he's not just blaming guns, he's blaming Republicans too. He claims that the guns used in Chicago are coming from red states. Well, every year the ATF prepares a list. The most recent one is from 2023. Let's take a look. You can see that most of the gun crimes committed in Illinois are coming from Illinois. Illinois is at the top of the list at 9,147. He mentioned Indiana, Missouri, and Louisiana. Louisiana didn't even make the list, and if we add Indiana and Missouri together, they total just 3,768, which is less than half of the guns originating from Illinois. In fact, if we add all of the states on this list together, we still get 1,572 less guns from all of those states combined than Illinois. So that's the first thing. It is not a red state problem. Stop blaming the Republicans and stop blaming the guns. When liberals blame guns for gun violence, my response has always been the same. Saying guns kill people is like saying scalpels perform abortions. It's pretty simple, right? It is not the scalpel, it is not the gun. It is the person that's holding it that is doing the killing. Now let's hear from Trump.
They are against preventing crime. They are fighting us. But we could straighten out Chicago. All they have to do is ask us to go into Chicago if we don't have the support of some of these politicians. But I'll tell you who is supporting us, the people of Chicago.
The people of Chicago are supporting this. This is taken from a town hall. Listen to this lady expose Brandon Johnson for the hypocrite he is, and listen to her demand more police on the streets of Chicago. Also take note of the red shirt she's wearing.
You remember you told us to defund the police? Remember, you ran on that. Remember, you was to defund the police? Let's start with that. Let's defund the police detail that you have. And let's put the police back in our neighborhood, because we're not for defunding the police. Won't you just practice what you preach? Remove all the details. We saw you coming in today. You had all the police presence. So let's take some of that away.
She's saying what we've been saying. If liberal mayors hate cops, why do they use them on their own private security detail? If having more police doesn't make you safer, then why do you surround yourself with cops? Get rid of them. Send them back to patrol and then walk the streets like everyone else. Then tell us how safe it is. That was at a town hall. Here are some more residents.
What do you think about President Trump? He's offered to provide assistance to help make Chicago safe, to bring in potential National Guard, potential, federal law enforcement officers and agencies to give help to Chicago. How do you feel about getting help to make your city safe?
Help is needed.
How do you feel? Do you think that protecting and making Chicago safe, should that be a political issue?
I think Chicago can take all the help we need. So if it turns into a political issue, then tomato. If it works for the environment, for the safety of, the people, then I'm with it. Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. Because, look, we need more. I mean, what's wrong with more help?
Right. Let me explain something. When you step outside your apartment or your house, you're in a war zone. You don't have to be in Iraq and Afghanistan. And if you think I'm lying, let's check out the news every day.
It's gotten out of hand. It's way too much. And it's a lot of senseless killing.
But you think that President Trump could step in and help?
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah. I mean, I don't see no harm in that.
It's just gone from bad to worse to disaster.
No one really feels safe. It's impossible to feel safe in a city like this, especially with the leadership we have.
These kids are carrying guns like around the ages of 8 years old, and they're killing other 8-year-old kids with guns. It's insane.
Crime is everywhere, but I think it's just where we are in the city of Chicago, the rate is just a little bit out of control. So whatever measures might help.
Now, wait a second. Didn't we hear all those idiots in the crowd cheering Brandon Johnson, saying that the National Guard wasn't wanted and they were going to rise up to stop them? How can this be? Well, it turns out those people in the crowd don't live in the hood. They're white liberals. White liberals live in their own bubble. Watch this one who posted this from her $1 million waterfront condo, claiming that there is no crime in Chicago because there aren't a lot of people getting pickpocketed.
And you know what doesn't happen in Chicago? People aren't getting pickpocketed left and right. Like, tourists aren't being assaulted. Tourists aren't being stabbed and shot. It's the fountain. They just missed it. I love when they go under it and all the people scream. I love when they scream. Like, look how cute.
People aren't being pickpocketed because they're too busy being shot. But you wouldn't know this because you live in your own bubble. Everything looks safe from 20 stories up. Liberalism is a mental disorder. Now, the question becomes, can Trump do this legally? He brought the National Guard into D.C., but that was different because that's under federal control. Can he do it in a state? Most legal experts say he can't. But Bill O'Reilly claims that there is one exception where he can. And the Trump administration is already preparing for this battle in court.
Right now, as we speak, the 5 White House counsels are drawing up for the Supreme Court, because that's where it'll wind up, okay, reasons why these drug gangs are terrorists. And that elevates it from street crime into an area where the president has authority. Now, I don't know if that's going to work, but I do know this. Pritzker is the worst. He doesn't care about these people. He never has. And these murders in Chicago have to stop. And the only one who can stop it is Trump.
Will Trump designate these gangs as terrorists? He did it with Tren de Aragua. I just don't know if he's going to do it here. But God bless him for trying, because the mayor and the governor will not solve this crime issue. And they do what all Democrats do. This is part of the Democrat playbook. The first thing you do is ignore it. Like the border. They tell you the border's secure. Or like Joe's mental health. What are you talking about? Joe's as sharp as a tack. They're doing the same thing here. Crime? What crime? Here's Pritzker.
We're very pleased about the progress that we're making. I know that I live rent-free in the president's head, and I wish he would spend some time in Chicago so that he could see what a lovely city we have. We're making sure that we're prepared, that we're ready to go to court, and that we're pushing back on the narrative that he has that somehow there is a problem in the city of Chicago. And most importantly, he should know that there is no emergency in the city of Chicago. I think you can see what a lovely place this is. I just walked on the lakefront this morning and walked to dinner last night with my wife.
It's great that you think it's safe to go to dinner with your wife, with your security detail. But try doing that in Woodlawn or in Inglewood, on the south side. Just you and the wife. No security detail, just you and the missus. Walk around those areas. Tell me how safe it feels. You're a coward. You live in a bubble, just like the woman in that high-rise. Everything is safe when you're on the outside looking in. That's all I got for you on this one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying to the end. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. It'll motivate me to make some more. give it a thumbs up. And if you have time, please consider commenting. I read and answer all of the comments. Thank you again, and I hope to see you soon.
You can see that what a great city we really have, and that there is no emergency here. That's important for all of you to recognize and to report on. There's not an emergency.